Today we have Vlad Cazacu here today, founder, CEO of Flowlie, and he is bringing a platform to the podcast that is completely revamping the way companies find the best investors for their mission and for their journey. Vlad, I'm so excited to have you go through the platform today because this is one of the most pivotal and stressful and monumental moments for almost any startup journey. And I am so happy that you had the vision to put something together that helps people get through the process and get connected with the right partners. So I know you have a full demo prepared for us today. I'm really excited for you to go through it. But before we do that, whenever we have the founder on, I always love to just hear what that inspiration is. I know you have an extensive background in VC before, joining the good side of starting a company. But would love to hear that story and have you share that with our audience.
Amazing. Well, Anthony, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I have to share a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Bucharest, Romania, in Eastern Europe, and then came to the States. My very first entrepreneurial experience was actually back in college, where I started the company in the edtech space doing automated textbook trading. We got an acquisition offer about 11 months after we started, and we were too young and too full of ego to sell at that time, thinking we're going to make something better and larger. We didn't. Long story short, but it was a great learning experience, and that kind of started my journey into entrepreneurship. Learn more about what other entrepreneurial support units are doing to support their founders, especially the ones that don't have a lot of experience in. So think of universities, incubators, accelerators. End up doing worldwide research on that, connected with a lot of folks, and end up publishing a book on the topic called When They Win, You Win, which was a very interesting career move from a lot of directions, and that got me into VC. That was the door opener into venture as an investor, initially with FFVC in New York, and then moved to Austin and then to Miami to run the Southeast and the East Coast of multifamily office group. So everything that I've done was venture up until Flowy. And to give you a kind of behind the scene sneak peek of early Flowly, we actually started with an investor product, so not the product we're going to demo tonight. And that product was designed to help investors and PE firms, so both VCs and PEs, to help navigate top of funnel. They were getting inundated by deal flow, and we were seeing that at our firms as well. I've seen it across 3 different firms that I've worked at. And we were not able to understand very rapidly where we should focus our energy. There was a lot of manual work involved in that. So we developed this algorithm that helps predict the likelihood of a match for us to be interested in those particular companies. And we had great design partnerships and everything, and we were getting it deployed and had paying customers, but we just did not feel that there's enough budget for us to make a meaningful business. We were still working nights and weekends on top of our jobs and investors. And at some point we said, I think this is it. I don't think there's a future for this Flowly for investor product. And that's when, kind of the universe works together, to your advantage. And then some of the founders that we were in a way onboarding on the platform, because they were being due diligence by those investors we were working with, asked us, hey, can we get the same level of intelligence about those investors that you're giving them about us, but before we meet with them, so that we don't waste any time speaking with investors who shouldn't, be interested in our company. And we said, hold on a second, there actually may be a repurposing of the technology that we built for a very different use case, a whole 180-degree pivot. And this is how Flowly V2, which is now the only Flowly that we have available, started as a product to help founders identify and predict the likelihood of an investor being interested in them. And that is still a core feature of Flowly even today. And obviously, the algorithm and the models have improved significantly over the time. We're able to predict much more accurately. But that's how we got to Flowly, by building the wrong product nights and weekends for about 2 years before the pivot. And then that was 2.5 years ago. So now full-time for 2.5 years in a whole new direction, and really excited and not looking back.
Well, congratulations on all the progress. And I love that the person you're helping is the founder and that founding team, because I do think they're the ones who really need help. If you're an institutional investor, you have resources and you have a playbook by the time you're at that point where you're looking for potential investments. But a lot of these founders, they're first-time founders. They haven't gone through a fundraising process before. They haven't gone through getting connected with investors really. They had a great idea to help a market, But bridging that gap and going into that world can be really, really intimidating. So
Absolutely.
it's always good when you can match getting a good market fit, but also really helping someone in need too.
For sure, no, totally agree with it. And the way we're thinking about it is leveling the playing field. As you mentioned, for most founders, they do this maybe 3, 4, 5 times in their lifetime.
Right.
If they're starting one company, maybe up to 10 times in their lifetime. They're starting 2 or 3 companies, which is also like so rare. An investor does this every single day in, day out. So the lack of not only information and guidance, but just structured process on how to run it is really where we shine. And that's the problem we identified. Everyone has a sales process, everyone has a hiring process, everyone has a marketing go-to-market process. Very few people actually have a fundraising process. And why that's the case, it's because sometimes they just don't know, like, how should I structure this? How should I think about it?
Yeah, to your point, if you're going to do it max 5 times in your lifetime, it's very difficult to think like, oh, I need to be investing in this process. So having Flowlie make it easy is such an advantage for somebody starting out. So Vlad, I'm really excited. I know you prepped a demo for us today, so I'm really excited to hop into the platform, see what it looks like, and then see how it helps founders find their best partners.
Sounds like a plan, and feel free to interrupt at any point, and we can jam on other fundraising pieces as I share my screen.
Perfect.
We just got in Flowlie and fundraising operation system for you. And the reason why we say operation system, it's by design. We are not a marketplace. Big disclaimer, we're not a broker, so we're not trying to be a middleman of any sorts. We don't try to in a way bridge an introduction from us into you. Our goal is to help you uncover the right people for your business and uncover the right people in your network that you should be building relationships with to get in touch with those investors. So we very much sit behind the scenes in most of those things. The way most founders would navigate Flowlie, they would start at investor research. And this is where you will see what I was mentioning earlier about our fit scoring model, which is already on version 5, the ability to predict the likelihood of a particular company or an individual at that company be interested in your company. So when we look at, in this case, B Capital, we're looking at demo data to be clear. So there's going to be a mix of real and fake data throughout this demo. You're able to see thesis information about them, industries they're deploying, business models, product categories, check sizes, geographies that they're deploying in, etc. And again, you will see the fit scoring, which will tell you a little bit more about why they're a fit to you or not. Whenever you go a layer deeper and you say, okay, but like who at that particular firm would be a good fit, we can actually apply that fit scoring model to the individual as well, so we can start understanding who's the right partner at that firm for you to get in touch with. And then from there, you're probably going to take a look at their portfolio. And sure, you may find their portfolio on their website, if they publish it or not. But what we do with it, we actually understand the firmographics of that particular company. And it can tell you a little bit more than what the website would tell you, such as their industry, product, business model. And we also calculate the similarity score. So how similar is your company to someone in their portfolio? If you're in one of the major accelerators, think of YC, Techstars, etc. We also have batch data. So if you have been, let's say, in YC, summer 2020, you'll actually be able to easily discover other batchmates that have been backed by the same company, which again allows you to think of some intro paths that you can get into. As I was mentioning, you can look at it at firms, you can look at investors. It is a database at the end of the day, so you can use as many or as few filters as you want. You can dive really deep into that data. You can start creating target lists for, let's say, you're going to New York or you have a pre-seed or a Series A upcoming. We like to, treat this as like, micro menus that you want to get in touch with and order from. So in this case, New York City trip, you'll see we've populated a target list here, and you'll start seeing where our network analysis starts coming into play. This is the second big part of Flowlie. And this is the ability for us to understand your network and start predicting introduction paths between the people that you know and the people you're trying to know. So you can see in this list, for example, we have 88% intro coverage, meaning for 88% of the people in this target list, we found strong intro paths for you to get in touch with. In some cases, we even have 4 existing relationships, and we uncovered over 568 intro paths into them. So you may say, okay, how does Flowlie do that? Well, it's a mix of a few things. So I'll take you to step one, which would be, connecting the LinkedIn and your Google account that allows us to access those accounts and start understanding who you're connected with. And then from there, you're actually going to be able to see like all the connections of all the people in your team. Now, Flowlie is very much an account per startup. So think of adding your co-founder, your advisor, maybe some investor that's helping you actual fundraising process. And then you'll be able to at a glance see all the people that they're connected. We'll do the enrichment, so we'll tell you if they're VC-backed founders, bootstrap founders, if they've been VC-backed by who, if they're investors, etc. And we'll start ranking them based on the number of intros that they can provide. A second layer of information you can give Flowlie is how strong of a relationship you have with them. That is not something we ingest just yet. We're working on some functionalities to be able to do it. And then from there, you'll be able to go to any firm, any individual, or any target list. Let's go back to New York City target list and click this purple button right here called Find Intros. You'll select the people you want to start a discovery from, and then we'll kick off our discovery agent in the background, which will focus on identifying right intro paths between you and the people you're trying to get in touch with. Those warm intros will show up under warm intro tab, and you'll see that in this particular case, in this demo account, we already identified over 1,300 intro paths. We can predict things like LP in fund, co-investor, connected investor, exited portfolio founder, or current portfolio founder, and we use our own logic to create what we call our path impact score, meaning the likelihood of that intro path to succeed. And we do so because as you probably are very well aware, we connect on LinkedIn or we exchange emails at some point with people we're not really close with. And maybe Flowy will be able to pull some of those connectors, identify intro paths from them, but they're not really like the best intro paths for us. So the path impact allows you to effectively shortlist, in a way, the people at the top from the intro paths that are probably not worth your time.
Yeah, and
go for it.
Just to highlight that, I get asked all of the time, hey, I see you're connected with this person on LinkedIn. Would you mind bridging an intro? And I would say, I don't know, maybe a third to a half of my LinkedIn connections are really, really, really surface level. So definitely not at the depth where I would be comfortable making an intro. And it's almost impossible to get that information cold if you're just looking at people's LinkedIns or asking around. So I think having a platform in one place, and when it's probably one of the biggest decisions you're going to make, finding the right venture partner, it's so critical to have the right information at the right time. So I think those paths are amazing, and it just helps you save a ton of time, because you'd be wasting a ton of time digging through people's LinkedIns, trying to see who they're connected with. And even when you try to find that, it's probably a dead connection anyway.
100%, and that level of prediction is we like to say also, it's just time saving and time back. What we don't promise founders, because it's really outside of our control, is that if you use Flowlie, you'll raise capital. That's just not something that we can control. Each founder is different, each startup is different, and the market may change. But our promise to all founders is, one, you're going to have the best shot at raising capital, and second, we're going to try to save you somewhere between 100 and 300 hours per raise. And we have documented case studies where we're able to save over 250 hours for Series A founders navigating their Series A process through Flowlie rather than without Flowlie. And again, that's time wasted on research, on finding intros, on activating those intros, on trying to remember what was discussed in the last meeting, etc. All things that Flowlie does for you right now. And again, we make it very easy for you to change statuses or update those things, for you to constantly have a place that's a system of record for all your fundraising process. Again, because you're probably doing this on top of a lot of other things that a founder is doing, like running sales and product and hiring, and the chance is you may not remember everything that has happened, and that's okay. One of the things I wanted to show you on the intro paths that I'm really excited about, I can give you a sneak peek before we begin the recording, is actually there's two parts to it. One is our new graph view for intro paths. So previously we were displaying everything as a table, and we've invested some resources to make our intro path graphs actually come to life for you to easily be able to see, in this case, between myself and my co-founder, trying to get in touch with Christine at 500 Global. What are our connections that could get us in touch with her? And what are some of our strongest connections? How do they know them? Right? Again, trying to surface that information for you so that you don't have to go search it somewhere else. And now the next step, and we got this information, we got this ask over and over again, which is, okay, Vlad, you helped me find the right intro paths, you helped me identify the right investor should be reaching out to, but then I have to go somewhere else to send a message. As of today, you don't have to do that anymore. You actually can go to any of your connections, select the intro paths you're trying to activate, you click request intros right here, and we will pre-fill a very, very fine-tuned message in either an informal tone or a formal tone, depending on how well you know that person, that's going to kindly ask the other connector to see if they know these people well enough to be able to bridge an introduction. That will be recorded in Flowlie, all of that will be automatically tracked, and hopefully when they say yes, I can actually make an intro to Christine and Crystal, but not to Bruce because I don't know them really well. All of that will be captured in Flowlie automatically. So also, you have the ability to add, notes and all these other, CRM things, on it if you want to keep everything in one place. The moment you start activating those intro paths, you're probably going to start having meetings and you're going to have to start tracking them somewhere, which is why we built an investor CRM. Think of it as a more lightweight version of something, like a HubSpot or another sales CRM, obviously not as sophisticated, but vertically specific for fundraising. And what I mean by that is having the ability to record things like source, commitment amounts. You can tag the reasons for passing, which allows you to run an analysis afterwards to see why have investor passed on your round so far. You can even shortlist them for your next round if they're, let's say, saying that they're a little bit too early, for you. Now, I could open up a whole nother conversation why investors say that they're too early, but we're not going to get into that. And you're also going to be able to tag relationships. And the very last piece of Flowlie that's been heavily used by founders is actually our investor meeting tracking. So you're able to connect Google Calendar for all your team members. We automatically detect and import all your investor meetings in one place. We're currently working on a recording bot that can join your meetings and take notes directly. Currently, you will be able to use any of the N recording bots out there. Just send us, well, not send us, but just drag and drop your transcript inside. And we fine-tune an LLM to pick on things like investment thesis insights, sentiment analysis, points of interest, and points of concern, as well as detect all the tasks that are coming from that particular meeting. And you can use it as a task manager. You can, select which co-founder needs to work on this. You can select due dates and be reminded about all in one place. The way founders have leveraged this is primarily to write follow-up messages, because one of the things we strongly suggest is, hey, after a meeting, take a look at the points of concern. What was the investor not super sold on just yet? And write them a thoughtful follow-up after the call, saying, hey, Rachel, it seems I didn't really was able to properly describe the balance between services and software components. So I just want to give you a few more quick thoughts before your partner meeting next Monday. And that helps a lot, because then that person can go after that meeting to their partners and understand, okay, I had some concerns about this, and here's the email they sent afterwards. So Flowlie makes it very easy for you to surface that so that you can have an easier job making that. Now, when you look at an individual, you're also able to see all the meetings you had with a particular person, all the tasks you still have pending with that particular person. So again, whenever you're concerned, okay, like what was the latest interaction with, what are we doing, all you have to do is press Command K. We have global search. You go directly to that person and you'll be able to see it. And the last part of the demo that I want to showcase, because we've recently launched it about 4 or so weeks ago, is our AI agent. So what the AI agent does, it's an opportunity for you to speak in a chat interface, and the agent can actually take actions in Flowlie on your behalf. And I'll show you in just a second what that means. Let's say I'm looking for pre-seed VC investors who invest in B2B fintech. So now the agent will be thinking about what tools in its toolkit it will be able to use. Hopefully it picks the investor research one. We'll find out in just a second. There it is. It picked the investor research one. So now it's searching our database and has identified, seems over 342 VC investors in the United States focused on pre-seed round for B2B fintech. And the top 20 will show in this, and again, ranked by the feed score, the model I showed you already. So if you click view all results, that is one of the cool things that it's able to actually interact with. You will see that it takes you to investor research in investors, and it actually shows you all the filters it applied. So you can do the same thing by going to the database and adding those filters, but the chat did it in a few seconds compared to you probably taking a few minutes. And again, just in the interest of saving you time. So now let's add the top 5 investors to a target list named FinTech B2B Pre-Seed. And we were not able to get the the one in one shot. So we'll mark that. There it is. All right, second time is the try. For whatever reason, the agent for the first time tried to search for a target list, but then it corrected itself and actually created a new target list.
And that's okay. You didn't even have to put another prompt in there, and did it on its own.
Yeah, no, I mean, the agent will fact check itself. So it did create a target list, and you click on it, you see FinTech B2B Pre-Seed. It even wrote a description for us, so we understand exactly what it did. Added a top 5 there by feed score. And again, because we already ran network analysis for a few of them, we're actually able to see some of the intros already in. And again, the beauty of this is like all of this is inside, Flowlie. So everything that you would have done by clicking a button, the agent can do on your behalf. And you can do a whole bunch of other things. You can run competitor analysis if you want to see which of your competitors have been backed by who. It can help you uncover intros, connect your LinkedIn, and all these other things that I just showed you in this demo. So all in all, fundraising operations system, all in one, from investor research to network analysis, all the way to CRM and meeting analysis afterwards. So happy to chat more.
Amazing. Thank you so much for walking through that. And as I'm watching it, I think probably one of the biggest questions someone would have is, hey, why use something like Flowy when I can use maybe something like Salesforce or HubSpot that's really similar? And my initial reaction to that would be kind of twofold. One is you're actually dealing with a ton of sensitive data. So this isn't something that you really socialize to the entire company, and some of the interactions that you're having with these investors are really sensitive, and their reactions to you pitching your company. So I think making sure you have a system that's tailor-made for that, just in itself, even if all the functionality was exactly the same, just having a home for that sensitive data is really, really important. And then the other one is the other CRMs just don't have the proprietary data and algorithms that yours does. So it's not bridging those connections. It's not getting the feedback loop of who's actually making intros and getting people connected. And it's not really built to manage this type of process, which is really different. It's similar in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of key differences to a typical sales process. So I just think what you've done has created a really important home for arguably the most important part of a startup's life cycle.
I appreciate you saying that, and I very much agree with both points. And the one thing I'll add on the second one is whenever you go to a fundraising process, there's going to be a lot of research involved that usually happens off a platform. And a lot of the sales CRMs have built in some form of enrichment tooling and signaling tooling, or you kind of have all these add-ons that you can then plug into your HubSpot or other sales mechanism to identify a prospect that may be willing to buy your particular software or hardware solution. None of that really exists in the fundraising space. So if you were to go to HubSpot and try to enrich, Sequoia, it will try to treat Sequoia as a target you're trying to sell your software to, your hardware to.
Right.
It won't try to identify, okay, like what types of investments are they making, what of the investors are more active, what's been their pace recently, how much dry powder do they have, like all these other things, which you then try to go to a Crunchbase or a PitchBook or the website, and you already now have 3 tools for one process. And then, the quality of the data of some of these, databases is questionable. In some cases, they may have a lot of data, but not high quality. In some cases, they may have not a lot of data, but super high quality. We try to strike a balance in between by maintaining a very high bar of quality for what information goes into Flowlie. So, I would say announcement, you won't be able to find all the investors in Flowlie, but what you will find is all the investors who have actually been deploying over the last 4 years. So there's a very high chance that if you try to search our database and you don't find an investor, they're actually not deploying, but they may show up in a lot of other databases as active investors, leading you to waste a lot of time on dead leads. So again, it's the nuance of fundraising where people waste the most amount of time, and what we try to do is really build a platform to support them throughout that journey.
Well, I think some of the best products are built when you have a visceral reaction to the problem. You've had that experience before. So I think you being in the world on both sides now, there's very few people who can understand the nuance of the process as well as you. And I think that really shows up in the product. In the spirit of leveling the playing field, a lot of people that lean scale that we work with, a lot of our audience, they're entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. They're probably in the middle of a fundraising process or gearing up for one in the near future. Since you've been on both sides, are there any words of wisdom, tips and tricks, anything you can share with somebody before entering the process, and anything that you think you've learned just from the unique experience of being on both sides of the coin?
Absolutely. I would say the biggest piece of advice I always give on fundraising is think of it at 80% preparation, 20% execution, and don't be misled by all the headlines of the tech crunches of the world that are saying this founder raised in 7 days, because it's never that. What you're not seeing and what they're not reporting, and there's a reason for that. Like, everybody tries to create buzz, and clickbait titles are all the rave right now.
Right.
Is that person who raised in 7 days most likely has been, quote unquote, raising for about 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Now, they were not having investor meetings necessarily, but what were they doing? They were writing thoughtful investor updates to those people. They were maybe grabbing some coffees before we go to market to just build some relationship. They were creating long target lists of investors. They were probably looking at 100, 150 funds. Whereas most founders tend to think, I need like 10 prospects or 20 prospects. You don't. They're probably going to pass in the first week, and they're going to be out of top of funnel by end of Thursday. And on Friday, they're going to be wondering, okay, like, what should I be doing next week? Well, you should have started with much more top of funnel. And then from there, you would have probably tried to prep more intro paths rather than fewer intro paths. Because if I get warm intros to like 5 people and I have to then do cold outreach to like 15, it's going to be very different than if I can have warm intros to 40 people and have cold outreach to only 10. And you may say, well, Vlad, but like, how can I get warm intros to like 40 investors? And my answer to is, I don't know, do your best and leverage Flowlie at its fullest potential to try to get those intro paths. But maybe even if you need to connect with someone new and you'll say, well, but it'll take a week. That's my whole point. It's 80% prep, 20% execution. Those things will take some time. And rushing into getting in market and saying, I'm going to have some investor conversations without having those things lined up will almost entirely, like all the cases, will lead to a longer raise and then a shorter raise. And the second part to it, which is a derivative of this, is the whole concept of calendar density. When people are raising like 7, 14, 21 days, they're creating a very, very packed calendar, meaning they're activating all those warm intro paths at the same time and saying, Anthony, can you please introduce me to this person? But not just yet. Can you introduce me to them in 3 weeks? And Vlad, can you introduce me to this other person in 3 weeks? And they're creating this kind of like forward-loaded momentum so that when that week comes and they say, Anthony, please make the intro. Vlad, please make the intro. Johnny, please make the intro. Now they're having 15, 20, 25, 30 meetings booked on their calendar in a few weeks. And that allows them, like that, just in addition to confidence, it actually gives them the ability to say at the end of the week, hey guys, 6 of those investors are already moving to second calls. My calendar is starting to get booked for next week. I just want to make sure you have a slot. Did you get a chance to review the materials? What are the next steps? It just instantly creates some level of momentum that a fundraise just so desperately needs, that most founders fail to create because they just rush getting to market too early, and they do 10% preparation, 90% execution, and they're wondering why has the round lasted for 6, 7, 8 months, or maybe never completed.
That's huge. That's huge. Outside of course, building an amazing product, executing well in your business, but having that ability to build leverage in the process and teeing up and timing up those intros, that's really, really smart. And I don't think a lot of founders would be that calculated and tactical, especially on their first go at doing a fundraise process.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, it's interesting that you say that because our power users almost never first-time founders. Our power users are Series A founders, seed founders, second-time founders, because they kind of know the tips and tricks, and they're looking for the platform to help them move faster. Whereas what we've seen is with first-time founders and more pre-seed and seed, they may get in and they'll do to their best of their abilities, but also lean into some of our workshops and webinars to get a little bit more education, and then make most use of the platform afterwards. Because there's that component of education that the platform itself won't be able to fully deliver. Right? There's a lot of nuance to it. But once you know what you're doing, you can do it much faster, with Flowy.
Amazing. Vlad, this has been so great. I love the platform. I love the mission. I love that you're helping to level the playing field and really get those founders an opportunity to run a very successful process, which can be monumental for their startup mission. And you mentioned there's a lot of education. I know a lot of people listening would be really interested in that because it's such a critical part of their journey. What's the best way to get in front of the education resources that you have, and where can you lead them to?
Absolutely. So there's two pieces to it. One would be flowy.com/resources. There's actually a lot of one-pagers and some calculators that will help you get started on identifying at least should you be raising or not, and if so, how much, and get a little bit more familiar with our, let's say, terms and the world of venture investing. We also do have a pretty comprehensive blog out there on the website that contains a lot of guides and, let's say, toolkits to help you navigate the journey. And you could also go to flow.com/events, where you'll see a curated list of our upcoming events. We do a lot of those webinars with different partners. There's a variety of different industries and verticals, and there are always great opportunities for you to learn more about specifically pre-seed fundraising or healthcare investing, or specifically around how financial modeling can play a role in your fundraise. So a variety of different partners can bring different opinions, and we bring them on a regular basis. I would say we have a webinar probably every other week, and we'll aggregate them all on our website.
Amazing. That's so helpful, because there's kind of feels like it's a secret society sometimes, and you can't really break into everything that's going on behind the scenes. So that education is unbelievably helpful. And for those listening, what's the best way to get in touch with you or Flowly, or start getting their hands on the platform themselves?
Absolutely. Our platform is fully self-serve, so all you have to do is go to flowly.com, and that is spelled Flowlie, not with a Y, as you may think, or at least some of you may think. This debate for years. And to get in touch with myself, LinkedIn is probably the best. Just Vlad Cazacu. You'll find me relatively easy. I think there's like 2 or 3 people with that name on LinkedIn, so not a hard miss. And more than happy to help you. We're also very responsive to support at flow.com. So if you ever have any form of issues, onboarding or accessing the platform, you'll be able to get a response in 24 hours or less.
Perfect. And for those listening, any special offers to join Flowly or get access to the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. We're more than happy to offer our partner discount, which is, you get a third off. So from $150 a month per account, it goes down to $100 per month per account for our Pro solution, which includes everything that I just showed you. And that will be available with a discount code that you're probably going to find in the show notes or description of the YouTube.
Incredible. Vlad, thank you so much for being here. It's awesome to see the platform. Love the mission, love what you're doing, and appreciate it. And as you continue to grow the platform, add more feature sets, we'd love to have you back, and we can't wait to see what you all do next.
Amazing, Anthony. It was an absolute pleasure, and thanks so much for the invite again.
Thank you.